All this depressing information of Olga's certainly affected Kay, but he regarded it as a great consolation to find other people who were at least externally much in the same situation as himself, with whom he could join forces and whom he could touch at many points, not merely a few points as in Frida's case. He was indeed gradually giving up all hope of achieving success through Barnabas, but the worse it went with Barnabas in the castle, the nearer he felt drawn to him down here. Never would Kay have believed that in the village itself, such a despairing struggle could go on as Barnabas and his sister were involved in. Of course, it was as yet far from being adequately explained, and might turn out to be quite the reverse. One shouldn't let Olga's unquestionable innocence mislead one into taking Barnabas's uprightness for granted. Barnabas is familiar with all those counts of Clam's appearance, went on Olga. He has collected and compared a great many, perhaps too many. He even saw Clam once through a carriage window in the village, or believed he saw him, and so was sufficiently prepared to recognize him again. And yet, how can you explain this? When he entered a bureau in the castle and had one of several officials pointed out to him as Clam, he didn't recognize him, and for a long time afterwards couldn't accustom himself to the idea that it was Clam. But if you ask Barnabas, what was the difference between that Clam and the usual description of Clam, he can't tell you. Or rather, he tries to tell you and describes the official of the castle, but his description coincides exactly with the descriptions we usually hear of Clam. Well then, Barnabas, I say to him, why do you doubt it? Why do you torment yourself? Whereupon, in obvious distress, he begins to reckon up certain characteristics of the castle official, but he seems to be thinking them out rather than describing them. And besides that, they are so trivial, a particular way of nodding the head, for instance, or even an unbuttoned waistcoat, that one simply can't take them seriously. Much more important seems to me the way in which Clam receives Barnabas. Barnabas has often described it to me, and even sketched the room. He's usually admitted into a large room, but the room isn't Clam's bureau, nor even the bureau of any particular official. It's a room divided into two by a single reading desk, stretching all its length from wall to wall. One side is so narrow that two people can hardly squeeze past each other, and that's reserved for the officials. The other side is spacious, and that's where clients wait, spectators, servants, messengers. On the desk, there are great books lying open, side by side, and officials stand by most of them reading. They don't always stick to the same book. Yet it isn't the books that they change, but their places. And it always astounds Barnabas to see how they have to squeeze past each other when they change places, because there's so little room. In front of the desk and close to it, there are small, low tables at which clerks sit ready to write from dictation whenever the officials wish it. And the way that this is done always amazes Barnabas. There's no express command given by the official, nor is the dictation given in a loud voice. One could hardly tell that it was being given at all. The official just seems to go on reading as before, only whispering as he reads, and the clerk hears the whisper. Often it's so low that the clerk can't hear it at all in his seat, and then he has to jump up, catch what's being dictated, sit down again quickly and make a note of it, then jump up once more, and so on. What a strange business. It's almost incomprehensible. Of course, Barnabas has time enough to observe it all, for he's often kept standing in the big room for hours and days at a time before Clam happens to see him. And even if Clam sees him and he springs to attention, that needn't mean anything, for Clam may turn away from him again to the book and forget all about him. That often happens. But what can be the use of a messenger service so casual as that? It makes me quite doleful to hear Barnabas say in the early morning that he's going to the castle. In all likelihood, a quite useless journey, a lost day, a completely vain hope. What's the good of it all? And here's cobbler's work piled up, which never gets done, and which Brunswick is always asking for. Oh well, said Kay. Barnabas has just to hang on till he gets a commission. That's understandable. The place seems to be overstaffed, and everybody can't be given a job every day. You needn't complain about that, for it must affect everybody. But in the long run, even a Barnabas gets commissions. He has brought 2 letters already to me. It's possible, of course, answered Olga, that we're wrong in complaining, especially a girl like me, who knows things only from hearsay and can't understand it all so well as Barnabas, who certainly keeps many things to himself. But let me tell you how the letters are given out. Your letters, for example. Barnabas doesn't get these letters directly from Clam, but from a clerk on no particular day, at no particular hour. That's why the service, however easy it appears, is really very exhausting. For Barnabas must be always on the alert. A clerk suddenly remembers about him and gives him a sign, without any apparent instructions from Clam, who merely goes on reading in his book. True, sometimes Clam is polishing his glasses when Barnabas comes up, but he often does that anyhow. However, he may take a look at Barnabas then, supposing, that is, that he can see anything at all without his glasses, which Barnabas doubts, for Clam's eyes are almost shut. He generally seems to be sleeping and only polishing his glasses in a kind of dream. Meanwhile, the clerk hunts among the piles of manuscripts and writings under his table and fishes out a letter for you. So it's not a letter newly written. Indeed, by the look of the envelope, it's usually a very old letter, which has been lying there for a long time. But if that is so, why do they keep Barnabas waiting like that? And you too? And the letter too? Of course, for it must be long out of date. That's how they get Barnabas the reputation of being a bad and slow messenger. It's all very well for the clerk. He just gives Barnabas the letter saying, "From Clam for K," and so dismisses him. But Barnabas comes home breathless, with his hardly one letter next to his bare skin. And then we sit here on the settle like this, and he tells me about it, and we go into all the particulars and weigh up what he has achieved, and find ultimately that it's very little, and questionable at that, until Barnabas lays the letter down with no longer any inclination to deliver it, yet doesn't feel inclined to go to sleep either, and so sits cobbling on his stool all night. That's how it is, Kay. And now you have all my secrets, and you can't be surprised any longer at Amalia's indifference to them. And what happens to the letter? Asked Kay. The letter, said Olga. Oh, some time later, when I've plagued Barnabas enough about it, it may be days or weeks later, he picks it up again and goes to deliver it. In such practical matters, he's very dependent on me, for I can usually pull myself together after I've recovered from the first impression of what he has told me. But he can't, probably because he knows more.